Hello there, friends, and welcome back to Carpo's channel. This particular video isn't going to be a long one. It's actually a topic that I didn't intend on making a video today about, but most of the time when I make a video, the topic comes to me. I don't go seeking the topic. It's something that I need to talk about. My original discussion was going to be about society and feelings of defeat and despair and how that's affecting us as, especially men, as a man myself. And I thought this really tied into it perfectly as I was watching a report about fentanyl overdoses and how bad it's become over the last few years. I thought it was important to talk about this for several reasons. For number one, for the people out there who have dealt with deaths or suffering from loved ones due to addiction. I think all of us have had that, something happen in our lives where we were affected either ourselves by addiction or someone we love. Coincidentally, as I sat down to make this video and I set up my phone on the stupid cheesy tripod I have, I bumped and knocked something over on the table because it's all packed with stuff. I was cleaning off the shelves, getting ready to paint, and I started the video and then knocked over this thing. And I restarted it after that because as I picked it up, I realized the thing that I had knocked over was this little candle from Sierra, which a couple of years ago I did a video talking about how my niece had died from an overdose about 2 years ago. This was Sierra Brianna Otto. She was born in '96. I mean, she was young. She was 22 or 23, and she had gone to jail. She'd had addiction problems, and when she got out of jail, she went and shot up, and I don't recall if it was fentanyl laced or not, but fentanyl is a major component of much of the heroin out there these days because it's cheaper, it allows people to make a weaker product stronger, and it can be manufactured en masse, and the tiniest amount can kill you. And I think maybe I'm hoping to touch base for some people out there, not just those who want to know about fentanyl itself, but rather those who take pills, those who take drugs, those who put things in their body or up their nose. Anybody out there who consumes substances. And look, I was young once, okay? I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. I went to plenty of parties. I remember my first Dead show in '93 or something. It was just the wildest experience. People handing out acid all over the place and then I discovered opiates and people taking Vicodin, you name it. But it was completely different back then. There was no fentanyl. It's not that it didn't exist, it just wasn't in the products. It wasn't something that was used the way it is now. And back then you could, even as I grew up and as I got a little bit older, I never took any ecstasy pills. And I'm getting to a point here, I'm not going to just sit and talk about drugs. The first times I did, I heard that they're often laced with other things like amphetamines or whatnot. Well, what I found out is in order to know what you're getting, if you buy a pill of ecstasy, which a lot of young people are taking, and still these days, you take a pressed tablet that might have some design on it, you have no idea what's in there. The majority of it's just filler. And then it has MDMA or sometimes MDA, but also a lot of people replace it with cathinones, which many of these come from the cat plant, KHAT, is chewed for the cathinone content. The point being that these are similar effects, but not the same effects. You don't get the same, emotional connection and bond you do. So a person takes these things, they just feel high, but they also overheat, and they're out there dancing on the dance floor, and then they end up suffering and overdosing because of it. And then the drug itself gets a bad rap. And you compare that to heroin. Heroin's been killing people. I mean, the Civil War, soldiers were coming back addicted to heroin. We've had several epidemics in this country. And after the 90s and the pharmaceutical giants, we all know about Purdue Pharma and how the Sackler family basically was completely well aware of the addictive potential. It wasn't ignorance, it was purposeful ignorance. And then even though they go to court, nobody ever goes to jail. They pay a fine of a few $1 billion and they still make some profit and walk away. And I know a lot of people want to lay the Sacklers as the root of the addiction problem in this country, but I'm just making the point it goes back way before that. And the more upset and the more despair there is about life people have, the worse the addictions can become, and the more people who get hooked. And just at the same time, much of this is laced with fentanyl to make it stronger. And in case those of you who aren't aware, fentanyl can cause respiratory depression in very small amounts, and this is how heroin kills people. It's not that the drug fries your brain or something or stops your heart, it literally stops you from breathing. Well, with fentanyl, not only does it take much, much less to have an effect, but it also lasts much a shorter time. So therefore, the redose need is much more consistent, and the threshold between an effect and an overdose is very small. So we've been kind of ignoring the pandemic. I'm talking about the epidemic, the pandemic, if you want to call it, of overdoses, of addiction, because of this other pandemic. And for anyone who, I guess what really puts it there to me is I see all these people in these, high school and 20s age groups, they're all wearing their mask everywhere they go, even hiking on trails and saying that they're safe. And then you show up at a party, somebody gives you a pill, and you just go, oh, I trust this guy. And I think a lot of people, because of peer pressure, wouldn't be the kind of person to stay, whoa, hold on a minute, and pull out a test strip at a party. Which actually, what inspired me to make this is watching the local news here in Portland. There's a bar down there who the bartender is giving out free fentanyl test strips. It's just like a little container where you'd reach in and grab peanuts or anything else. Here, take some test strips. It sounds weird, but it can save lives. The fact is, I know a lot of people think we shouldn't test for drugs or we shouldn't give clean needles. It's encouraging drug use or allowing people to just consume drugs. The fact is, a lot of addicts, most addicts, don't want to be an addict. And providing these services does not bring on new addicts to say, oh, I can get free needles, so I'm going to start a heroin addiction. It just doesn't work like that. But what it does do is shows that people care. And that's the most important thing. During the whole COVID time, the whole trial, this whole shit we've been through over the last 2 years, it has increased that level of despair to such a level that many people have been tied up at home and locked down, starting new addictions. I know I drank more alcohol during the last couple of years than I ever have in my entire life. I'm not in denial that I've been affected by this, not because I fear the virus itself at all. It's the opposite. It's because I don't, and I feel like everyone else does, that there's bigger problems out there. But also the separation anxiety that we have. We need connection with other people. This is the number one thing that is going to help people overcome addictions, is people who truly care and love them. But anyone who's dealt with addicts knows that there's only so much you can say to where you roll your eyes and you have to walk away. But more people, ages 18 to 24, or 18 to 35, I believe, far more people died, youngsters, from fentanyl overdose over the last 2 years than suicides or accidents. And yes, even more than COVID. So we're always ignoring these major epidemics that we really have had going on for a long time. I mean, if you just look at the issue of weight alone, and the fact that if you say, whoa, hey, a person shouldn't weigh 400 pounds, you're called a fat shamer. Now, this is also bleeding over into the drugs. The people like, oh, don't shame people who use drugs. Yeah, you should shame yourself at the very least and be able to be honest about how we feel. We can't just tiptoe around people who are self-destructive, because that affects us all. We feel empathy and we feel sorry for them, but at the same time, it's tough love that has to happen. But part of the way that we can do this is by education. I am an educated drug user. We all use something, whether it be aspirin or drink coffee. I know my body and I know how to, I don't take things just because they pop up, and, anytime I do take something, whether it be I won't go into what I take or what I do, but let's just say that I test things and I'm very cautious. I want folks to know that fentanyl has been found in cocaine lately. I mean, over the last 5 years, several reports I've seen of people overdosing on coke, going to the hospital and testing positive for fentanyl. This is something that, for a lot of people in the cocaine community, if you will, they would think, oh, well, I'm not affected by fentanyl. I don't do heroin. I just do coke. No, it's found in amphetamines, it's found in coke, it's found in heroin, it's found in pressed pills. If you buy a white pill that says Vicodin on it, or any opiate, whether it be morphine or OxyContin or, any version thereof, it's most likely a fake pill that's been pressed to look like an original pill, and it may very well have fentanyl in it. So there's a death every 8 minutes, so at least on average in the US from fentanyl. So during the time of me making this video, we would probably lose 2 more people to that. It's just the way the world works, but it doesn't have to. And all we can do is try to help those in our own sphere, our own circles, and hopefully help them to make better decisions so they don't die at 23 years old and miss their whole future. But more, we suffer the brunt of it. We are the ones who really suffer when addicts die or when they ruin their lives. And we do care. So use test strips. Not everyone who uses drugs is a loser or somebody who should be cast away by society. But even if we feel that way, it doesn't matter because they're going to be there. It's like prisoners or anything else. Somebody commits a crime and they get locked away. People just ignore the prison system and how messed up it is and how we're not actually helping anyone to really achieve any sort of, restitution or, learning how to do better. We need more education instead of just pushing the buck onto the next elected officials. We need action by people, and that starts with education. So thanks for listening, and we'll do what we can. Take care.